Hello and welcome back to another episode of Self Ruled. I am your host, Hannah Holden, and I'm very excited to speak with you this week about the 10 questions to get closer to your purpose. So this episode is for you if you are at a point in your life where you are trying to figure out your purpose, how to bring more purpose and meaning into your life. Maybe you are in a military career or life transition and you're trying to figure out who you are and what you're really meant to do with your life. I went through this myself. In fact, purpose is something that I was searching for many years after I got out of the Marine Corps. I was obsessed with purpose. I was obsessed with finding my purpose. And because of that, because I didn't have the answer, because it took me so long to figure it out, I often was so hard on myself. I often beat myself up. I often wondered what was wrong with me, that it seemed like everyone else just had it figured out and I was just felt aimless, not knowing what my purpose was, having kind of some interest in many different paths, but not being sure. And so I wanted to create this episode to share with you some of the questions that if I had had these questions or answered these questions a long time ago, I might have gotten there faster. Now, I don't have any regrets because I think all of the life experiences that I went through, all of the different jobs that I had, they're all part of my story and part of my journey, and they made me into the person that I am today. So I'm totally grateful for the life path that I've had. But if this is finding you right now, it may just be the right time for you to be pausing and doing some of the self-discovery work. I mentioned that I was searching for purpose for a long time, but when it started to change for me was when I stopped looking outside of myself for the answers and really went within and started building a stronger relationship with myself, going deeper, getting to know myself on a deeper level, building self-trust, self-confidence, and building my intuition skills. I believe intuition is a skill because a lot of times we have intuition, but we've begun to discredit it. We may have had this intuition that we should pursue a certain career path, but then maybe we couldn't make it make sense. The logic wasn't there, so we ended up going in a different direction because we couldn't figure out how to make it happen, right? So, like I said, these are going to be some questions that can help you get closer to figuring out your purpose. And I think what I would recommend for this episode is to get a journal so that you can write down your responses, or maybe you want to come back to this later, but you may want to pause as I go through these questions and give yourself some time. Maybe you want to put some serious time on your calendar, like an hour, and answer these questions. So question number 1 is, what is most important to you? And when I ask questions like this in coaching sessions, I always pause to give you a chance to think about it, but can't pause too long because I'm running a podcast here. But what I'm really talking about here when I ask you what is most important to you is thinking about your values, your personal values. And if you want to see a list of examples of values, you can go to Google and just search list of personal values and you can find hundreds. I do this a lot with both individual clients and corporate clients to help people uncover their top personal values. And so usually what I recommend is looking at a long list and maybe narrowing down to, say, your top 10 and then narrow further. And this could be a process. So this in and of itself could be your hour, but depending on how long you want to take with this activity, I'm giving you a lot in this episode, but putting some real thought and reflection, deep reflection into these is key. I remember when I did this practice, I think like 5 years ago now, and came up with my top 5 personal values. It was truly life-changing because it made me realize why I had maybe been more aligned with some opportunities in life versus felt more tension with other opportunities. So I'll let you know that my top 2 values are freedom and purpose. And when I look at my life now, those top 2 personal values are written all over everything I'm doing in my life right now. But it wasn't always that way. I didn't always understand that those were the top 2 values that were driving me and driving my life. And so if you can take the time to figure out what those are, it will give you a lot of clarity. Sometimes I have to pull out these personal values when I come up against a decision. I'm at a fork in the road. I've had to do this so many times and just be real with myself, because sometimes we want things. Maybe it's we want the money, or there's something, we want the status, or there's something appealing about an opportunity. But if it doesn't align with your top two values, you're going to feel the pain of that later. I have experienced this multiple times. You're going to feel the tension and the conflict as you pursue an opportunity that does not align with your personal values. So I don't know if you listened to my first episode of this podcast where I explained a little bit about the idea behind being a self-ruled person, which is about living life according to your own rules, your own values, on your terms. And so figuring out your values would be like step number one to become a self-ruled person, is figure out what is most important to you. Highly recommend you take some time with this one, because your life is going to come down to your values and what's most important to you. But I know a lot of people that are not living a life that's in alignment with their values, and they're paying the consequences. They're honestly not the most fulfilled and happy, and I've been there before myself. So question number 2 that I would consider is, what is your true nature? So when I talk about true nature, I am talking about your natural preferences, you in your most natural, raw, authentic form. What does that look like? And another way to think about this is, what were you like as a child? I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, I was free spirit, creative, imaginative, sensitive. I also really wanted to be a teacher. When I was in second grade, I used to dress up like my second grade teacher. I'm sure she thought that was hilarious to see me walk in with my skirt and tights and my little shoulder pads. I'm sure that was hilarious, but I was emulating her. It was a compliment. I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be a teacher. In fact, I used to sit my brothers down and make them listen to me as I, played teacher. And it's so funny because after all these years, I see how I was at my most authentic, my truest nature when I was a child is very similar to what I've been creating in my life now. But a lot of times we go down this twisty-turny path in life. For me, it was the military right out of high school, which is nothing like my true nature. And so we take on other kind of qualities, traits, skill sets and things, but getting closer to your purpose will require you to get closer to your true nature. And I think this is why sometimes it can be scary for people, because a lot of times we are judgmental of our true nature. I know I was for years, where there were aspects of my true nature that I was judgmental of because I'd been in environments where those qualities weren't valued as much. So when I was in the Marine Corps, certainly not the creative, sensitive side of myself would have been valued. So I had to show my intelligence, my confidence, those other things. And I think that's what's so humbling and so vulnerable about getting to a point in life where you decide to pursue your purpose wholeheartedly. It's very humbling and it's very vulnerable, because it will require you to remove the layers of yourself that aren't authentic and lift yourself on a pedestal, lift your true self on a pedestal in a way that you maybe have never done before. So that's I could go so deep into this, but back to the question of what is your true nature, this is those natural preferences. And another way to think about this is, when you were a kid and you started moving your body, maybe you pick up a ball for the first time and you throw it, you made a choice between your left hand and your right hand. So for me, I'm left-handed. I was left-handed from the time I was little. But throughout my life, I've adapted. There are a lot of things I do right-handed because life demanded it. The situation demanded it. And so for you, you have some things about you that are really authentic and natural to who you are. It's who you are when nobody's looking. It's who you are that comes effortless. And maybe that's left-handed or right-handed, but then life has required you to flex and be adaptable. That's how we survive. But again, like I said, uncovering your purpose, I want to point you in the direction of getting really familiar with what your true nature is. And just another idea here is that you can look at your Myers-Briggs type indicator profile. So if you've never heard of that, Myers-Briggs, or the acronym is MBTI, this is a personality assessment that is based on your natural born preferences. So this is a great one for answering that question about your true nature. I've been obsessed with Myers-Briggs for years, and so much so that I was researching it on my own for fun, and so much so that at this point I use it in my business with leadership teams and with individuals because it's a great assessment for validating your natural preferences. It's very validating when you figure out something about yourself and you can say, "Oh yeah, that's true. That's so true. That's exactly how I am." And even though I've worked with people who are kind of skeptics of MBTI here and there, most people that I've done MBTI assessments with, when they read their personality profile, they're stunned. They're like, "Wow, this is me to a T." So something you can check out is taking the MBTI, because especially if you're struggling of, well, what is my true nature? It's so confusing now. I've learned all these other things. I was left-handed and now I've learned how to be right-handed. I highly recommend MBTI. Can be very enlightening and empowering. All right, so let's move on to question number 3. What would your perfect day be? I think some people don't even want to think about this, or have never thought about it, because it almost feels so impractical or too luxurious. But I've done this in the form of a coaching exercise with clients before, and it's always amazing to me what they hear themselves say, and it might not be what they think. So I think a lot of times our perfect day is kind of stunning when we realize how different it is from the life that we're currently living. For many years, I was not living my perfect day, but now I'm living my perfect day. So even just the act of writing down what your perfect day would be is very interesting, because it can give you a sense of direction to begin to align your life. So for example, I'll use myself, like my dream day involves a lot of freedom. I wake when I want without an alarm. I want to be able to go to the gym and not have to log on at 8 a.m. I want time for creative work. I want some time to do the more tasky stuff in my business. Writing that down is so interesting, because I look at my life now and that is my life, but it wasn't always that way. But you have to be courageous enough to ask yourself what it is you really want. What would your perfect day actually be? And it's not necessarily that you're going to do a total overhaul and in 24 hours you're going to be living a different life, but you may see opportunities to make shifts, and this is going to create more awareness in how you could actually thrive. We are not all thriving with the same lifestyle. So thinking about your perfect day and figuring out that is probably the type of life you're meant to lead, and the type of life that you're going to thrive living. Because like I said, we're not all built the same way. There are people who are living their perfect life that looks nothing like mine, and we would not thrive in each other's worlds. Question number 4 is, what are you curious about? And I love to ask this question, because I think a lot of times when people think about purpose, they can feel overwhelmed by that question. What is my purpose? What is my calling? It can just feel too big and very overwhelming. And so if you're in that boat, I would recommend instead considering the question, what are you curious about? Because I have this theory that curiosity is on one end of the string and purpose is on the other. And if you think about it, like when you see that thing that you're curious about and you reach out and you grab that string, and then you see the next thing that you're curious about and you keep working your way along that string, you're going to get closer and closer to your purpose. Over the years, there were a lot of things that I was curious about, and it didn't necessarily make sense to me at the time. Curious about Myers-Briggs, curious about psychology, curious about a whole lot of things really, but coaching, curious about training, so many things. And now a lot of the things that I was curious about are things that I've built into my life now, or my business now. So giving yourself the permission to follow those things that you're curious about, even if it doesn't make total sense to you right now. All right, question number 5, when do you feel energized? So I would say that I've always been very energized, having deep conversations with people, sharing my ideas with people, and not necessarily just one way, but just those people where we could get into deep conversations, talking about people, talking about ideas, possibilities. And that is when I feel my most energized. So this can be a very revealing question. When do you feel most energized? Question number 6, who do you look up to and why? So for me, I realized that I really look up to other inspirational speakers, personal development teachers, people that are teaching valuable information that is helping me develop as a person, grow as a person. It could be that they're helping me grow in my health and fitness, helping me grow as a business owner, helping me grow in my mindset, anything that is really personal growth oriented. I look up to people like that. And I think it's so interesting because I believe the people we look up to the most, we look up to them because we see ourselves in them. And they can be a really big clue as to what we're meant to do in this life. Question number 7, what are you better at than most people? I want you to be a little bit cocky and conceited here. I want you to think about, well, what are the things that you are just naturally better at than other people that come easier to you? Maybe you only have to put in just a little bit of effort and you get maximum reward. I know that everybody has some superpower. If you're kind of drawing a blank, maybe you've never really thought about it, you can also look at taking the Strengths Finder assessment. That's another assessment, and it will give you there's a couple different ones. You can do your 34. It'll give you, rank your 34 strengths in order of your strongest to your weakest. But also you can get your top 5 strengths. So the things that I would say I'm better at than most people are going to be ideation and my communication skills. So sharing ideas out loud, teaching, public speaking, all of that. And those are in my top 5 for Strengths Finder. So when I look at my Strengths Finder, I don't remember the exact order, but it's communication, adaptability, ideation, futuristic, and individualization. And these all make so much sense. They're all very active, whether it be in my speaking, podcasting, training, coaching, anything that I do. So I would recommend first answering the question for yourself about what you think you're better at than most people. But afterwards, you may want to go take the Strengths Finder and just see what comes back. See how spot on your intuition was. All right, question number 8. What problems would you like to solve? And I'm going to say problems, plural, because I think as we go through life, there's going to be multiple things that catch our attention. As I look back on my life, there's been different times in my life where I was more interested in different things. But as I grew and as I matured, those things shifted. So I tried to write down a few of the problems I wanted to solve to give you an idea. So I wanted to solve poverty, social injustice. I wanted to solve confidence for people, especially in building public speaking skills. I wanted to solve the problem of finding purpose after the military. I wanted to solve the problem of there being like a lack of cohesion on teams. So helping teams, people in workplaces get along better and understand each other better, communicate better. Also, psychological safety in the workplace, like teaching leaders how to take better care of the people that work for them. And I also wanted to solve the problem of helping people feel empowered to pursue their purpose and dreams. So definitely recommend make a list. And I think it can be really interesting to see what are the interconnected pieces between the problems you want to solve. When I look at my list, they're so connected to my values. So the problems you want to solve are likely going to be very connected to your personal values. But then I think that the how you do it will be connected to your strengths. So strengths finder or even your personality. So moving on to question number 9, this really builds on the prior question. But what is the one problem you would like to solve every day? What is the one problem you would like to solve every day? Because I believe that even though you have a list of maybe different things that you're interested in, there is one that is going to rise to the top above them all. And that is the one that I believe is your purpose. I meet a lot of people, even other business owners, professionals who have built a career around purpose or having more purpose and meaning in their career. And yet some of them aren't even solving the problem they're most passionate about, because sometimes we can't see a way to do it. We can't see a way to make money doing it. So we might pick something else off the list that we're not as passionate about. But if you want to get closer to your purpose, I would ask yourself that question about what is that one problem you would like to solve every day. If you were only going to solve one problem for the rest of your life, what would it be? All right, last but not least, question number 10. What would you like to be known for? So if you were to look back on your life in 10, 20, 30 years, what would you want to be known for? This one can be kind of shocking when you really take a moment to think about that and just compare how much does that align with your current life. Again, I think a lot of times claiming our purpose is about giving ourselves permission to claim our truest self, which means we have to actually value what makes us unique. And if we have grown up undervaluing ourselves because we've been in environments where our nature wasn't prized and praised, we will have to do that work value what we bring and become our biggest cheerleaders for ourselves in order to begin to fully lean into our purpose. So I love that purpose is not just about figuring out what you're meant to do with your life, but a lot of times it's also about reclaiming who you truly are and building enough self-esteem, self-worth, self-love to allow yourself to live as your truest self. I think that's just the most beautiful thing about pursuing your purpose is that it's about a journey to becoming your truest self once again and finding that love and that value in that. So I could get real deep here, but your purpose is often going to require you to become more true to who you are. And that is probably the most rewarding aspect of the journey to becoming more of a purpose-driven person. And, looping it all back to the theme of this podcast, which is really about being a self-ruled person, that's about living your life in accordance with your own rules, your own values, your own purpose. And you're going to have to like yourself in order to be able to do that. But that's probably going to be a whole nother episode. So thank you so much for joining this week, and I will see you next time.